There are 5 specific triggers that are draining your energy at work right now, and most people only recognize 1 or 2 of them. But one of these, and we'll get into it in a minute, is quietly burning people out faster than anything else in today's workplace. So if you've been feeling exhausted, on edge, or mentally checked out at work, this is going to connect some dots fast. And I'm not going to list these. I am going to show you how they actually stack because that's where burnout actually happens. Trigger number 1 is a stressed out boss. I oftentimes say that the corporation you work for is only as good as your immediate supervisor. And if you have a supervisor that has an inability to emotionally regulate themselves, this can be a challenge to work for. What happens when the corporation starts wanting more out of the people? What happens is they push it on your boss and your boss pushes it on you. Now, when it comes down on you, it oftentimes doesn't feel good. It can come out in a harsh word. It can come out in a letter that can trigger you. So now you're taking this home with your family. Now you're thinking about this trigger and you're bringing it back to work with you the next day. And this starts leading us into the second trigger because now communication starts breaking down. Trigger number 2 is inconsistent communication. Have you ever had your supervisor give you directions that you knew you had, but then when you did the task, they said, "That's not what I said"? Have you ever had 2 supervisors give you 2 different messages? How about the coworker, your peer, that gives you a communication that's different than the one you received? This is called triangulation. Whenever you add another human being into a communication, 3, it triangulates. It becomes a more complicated communication. Well, when your boss is stressed, they might tell you something in one mood, and they might tell them something in another mood. 2 completely different communications. Now you're not on the same page. And now you're triggered because of this communication. If this is sounding familiar, stay with me because now we're getting into the triggers that define the modern workplace. Trigger number 3, social and generational tension. So now we have to be aware of every generation because we all think differently based upon how we were conditioned. We have to be aware of social conditions, giving respect to all people in all situations. Now, this is a lot to understand what people expect from us so that we don't trigger them. Because once we trigger them and they're angry at us, we can now feel that trigger coming at us. This is a very regular trigger in today's workplace. This requires education and knowing who you work with so that you don't trigger them so that they don't trigger us. Now, this next one is quieter, but it's sitting in the background for a lot of people right now. Trigger number 4 is job fear. A lot of human beings have job fear. We get it programmed into us from our family's origin. But now, when Amazon, Meta, Google are laying off thousands of people, you have AI being built, you have robots being built, dematerialization of business is going digital, business disruptors, people thinking all day about disrupting business. Nobody is certain about their job. Everybody's wondering about this future, and this quiet trigger is stacking upon the other triggers. And this is very real. This is where you want to be diligent and aware of what's going on around you so that you can keep your job as long as you can and be adaptable to get the next one. Now, this is the one that most people don't expect, but it's becoming one of the biggest stress triggers today. Trigger number 5, AI monitoring and performance tracking. So now human beings are being optimized. The human resource, they want to get as much as they can out of us. So what they do is they create procedures, metrics that we're graded on. And if we are not at the company standard at these metrics, we're graded down. So now we're being micromanaged by these machines to attain to these metrics. Do you like to be micromanaged? I don't. There's a lack of trust. Well, this is what corporations are doing because it makes perfectly logical sense to them because they're here to make money. And so what they're going to do is optimize us, and they're going to use artificial intelligence to do it. They're going to give you new metrics and you are going to be scored on these. So here's what's really happening across all of these. It's not one big stressor, they're stacking. You get triggered once, then you get triggered again, and you get triggered again. So now you're carrying multiple energy drains throughout your day. And then you sit there wondering, why am I so exhausted? That's why. Because a trigger is usually not about the present moment. Something in you is being reactivated from your past. And if you're not aware of it, you can't do anything about it. If my wife gets upset at me for what I think is a minor, and I say, honey, did I do something yesterday? I call that the trigger before the trigger. This is what's happening to human beings on the planet. They have one trigger stacked on another trigger, stacked on another trigger. The more triggers you stack, the more triggerable you are. This is a problem. This is why you have to learn to master the skill of emotional regulation, the ability to let go of the triggers every single evening, simultaneously be aware of the triggers as they occur. The trigger is a reaction from your past programming. This is where human awareness and human consciousness comes in. This is what turning snowflakes into diamonds is all about, taking the pressure and turning it into the power in the age of AI. So the shift isn't to eliminate the stress completely, it's to start being aware of the triggers early before you start stacking them. Because once you can see them, you can stop feeding them. And if this helped you connect with what's actually draining your energy, please subscribe. Because we're here to turn snowflakes into diamonds and take that pressure and turn it into power in the age of AI.